right, and welcome to another edition of the Throwing. It's here already. Already time for another edition of the Throwing Bagels Podcast. Kevin Mooney here alongside Chris Douglas. Hey, Chris.
What's up, Kevin?
Hey, not much. How about you?
Oh, not much. Had
Not
a
much.
had a great weekend watching football and football.
Foosball and football.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Football.
Jason Hamo with us as well. Hey, Jason.
Hello there. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. And then how are you, sir? Doing all right?
I'm doing all right. Not bad.
Okay, not bad, not bad. Well, joining us now, and since Chris mentioned football, I think we could find a no more of a perfect guest than our next guest on the Throwing Bagels podcast. He's a co-host of the Man-Child Show with Boy Green on the Score 1260 in Syracuse. New York Jets digital reporter with Heavy on Sports. That's heavy.com. The host of the Boy Green Daily podcast and fellow SUNY Oswego grad. It is Boy Green himself, Paul Esden Jr. Hey, Paul.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? I'm fired up. This is awesome. We can, this is a meeting of the minds. The Mount Rushmore of Lakers all time. I don't know who voted on this panel, but I love the panel. It's great. Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And as we speak, we record Mondays.
Sure.
So Eagles Falcons is in progress, Monday Night Football to wrap up week 2. But Paul, of all the other games from week 2 in the NFL that have wrapped up, is there anything over the first 2 weeks of this NFL season that has stood out to you, that has surprised you?
I mean, I don't know. I think we always say, we've now seen everything. There's nothing more to see here. And then all of a sudden things happen. You're like, whoa, okay. Kind of keeps you humble, keeps you on your toes. Like the parody in the NFL of the Raiders going into Baltimore and beating the Ravens. You're like, wow, okay. Didn't have that on the bingo card. Or go to week 1, New England going into Cincinnati and beating the Patriots. That was the biggest spread of the week. It was like, our survivor polls. Oh, okay. The Bengals seem like a safe pick this week. And just all hell breaks loose. So to me, and that's what makes football awesome, is that on any given moment, on any day, any team can beat any team, no matter what, no matter the circumstances, which again makes this to me incredibly exciting. So I love seeing the upsets. And the overreactions, obviously, of course, when one team somehow blows it, they're 0-2, and the percentages of only 9% of teams over the last 3 years that start 0-2 make the playoffs, and we could go, no, fire this guy, loser, winner, this, that, or the other. That revs the engine too. So yeah, football, baby. It's really, to me, the parity in the league, which makes us awesome. And it's funny to say parity in the same breath that the Chiefs are back-to-back Super Bowl champions. It's great to say that together.
And who knows, they'll probably win the third one too. But because the league likes them and Taylor Swift and all this nonsense too.
Yeah, Swiftie conspiracy. I love it.
That's right. So the NFL introduced a new kickoff rule this year. What do you hear from the players' reaction to the kickoff rule?
It's funny. I think it's a little split, but the more people that I've talked to, they're a fan of it, to be honest with you, because back in the old days, where Devin Hester just went into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this past August, one of the greatest returnmen of all time, put him up there with the Deion Sanders, or go back even more to people that revved your engine from the past and in spot pockets in history, if we wanted to go get a beer, we're like, the kickoff's happening here in 2022. All right, we got a quick opportunity where absolutely nothing's going to happen. Let's go. And the NFL hated that. The NFL hated it. We go back a couple years with the extra point. It had a 99.4% conversion rate. And they said, that's too easy. We need to back it up a little bit. And now all of a sudden, extra points occasionally miss, which flips games completely. So the NFL wants to make sure that there is nothing assumed, that there is never a play that just is going to happen. And we know the result, what the result's going to be 9 times out of 10. So I think that was a big proponent of this kickoff rule change. It's perhaps one of the most dramatic rule changes in NFL history, from 1 year of having this to another year having that. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
bizarre. It's for fans, and I do a show every day, but I know there are fans in my aura, in my circle, would be like they'd show up week one a couple weeks ago. They're like, "What the hell is this garbage? What is this? This isn't a kickoff I've been watching the last 20 years. This is disgusting." And kind of people have adapted to it. But specifically to your question, like for instance, Brandon Codrington, who started out as an undrafted free agent who signed with the Jets back in May. He joins the team, and then eventually the Jets flip him to Buffalo. But after a big game he had in the preseason against Carolina Panthers, where he had a 63-yard return, he was asked after the game about the kickoff changes. What is that? And he just got a big smile across his face and said, it brought my career new life. We forget about the bottom end of the roster guys, where special teams is everything that they do. This makes it so. Over the last couple of years, when it's a ceremonial play, we evaluate the value of those kind of players quite differently in the NFL roster construction that happens on a year-to-year basis. So from the players I talked to, while there was an overall split because there was a relative unknown, we didn't know what was going to happen. No one showed anything during the preseason, so everyone was kind of trepidatious heading into the season of what is this going to mean. And then obviously an opening weekend, we get DJ Dallas, who returns, going to get the Buffalo Bills to the house to get our first kickoff return touchdown in this new era. So players were a little split, but the more I talked to them, it seemed like they were kind of leaning towards change. Change has to be better than what it has kind of evolved to over the last couple of years.
So let's talk about the local teams for a second. We'll start
Sure.
with the team you're familiar with, the Jets. 1-1 right now, squeaked by the Tennessee Titans yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But they did get some big news and some bad news on the defensive front with Jermaine Johnson. Seems like most likely tearing his Achilles. That's going to end his season, obviously. What does this do to the Jets defense now? And what is it going to possibly do to maybe the Jets bringing in, their free agent pass rusher?
Yeah, I saw the quotes there. Those were very strongly quoted, hand signals there. Yeah, Jermaine did confirm it in a social media video earlier today that he did tear his Achilles. That was the fear from the team initially. And again, you don't normally need additional testings. For those who have never blown out their Achilles or don't know people that have, a doctor can come on the field real quick and give you a quick check, and they feel it. It's either there or it's not there. There's not much further medical examination that's required for that one, so they knew. But I think they were hoping for some sort of a miracle, maybe that they were wrong on the field or what have you. But it seemed unlikely that it was going to be any other diagnosis, and unfortunately, that was confirmed earlier today with MRI. So he's gone, and he was a big piece to the puzzle, a former first-round draft choice, former Florida State product. And he brought a lot of chutzpah to the table, both in run defense and as a pass rusher. And now that he's removed from the table, I think the Jets have no other choice, but they have to bring in Hassan Reddick, who is a player that has not reported to the team since his introductory press conference back on April 1st, and we are here in the middle of September. So he's been gone for some time, and I felt like the Jets, as a multi-billion-dollar organization, have held the leverage over Hassan Reddick forever. But all Hassan Reddick was needed, the right voodoo doll at his house for Jermaine Johnson to go down. For him, one man's, misfortune is another man's treasure, and that certainly is the case for Hassan Reddick. So I'd be surprised. It probably won't happen on such a short turnaround. They kick off week 3 of the NFL against the New England Patriots. I'll be there for that one on Thursday. And because it's such a short turnaround, I would imagine Hassan, even if he signed anywhere here today, tomorrow, or anything, would not be available for that game. But there is a 10-day gap between the Jets-Patriots game in week 3 and the Jets-Broncos game, which is in week 4. And that 10-day gap sounds like enough time for all parties to kind of work out their business. But even still, even beyond that, they're going to need another pass rusher because they wanted Hassan with Jermaine, who was already on the team. So they're going to now need another guy. I'd probably reach out to the services of Yannick Ngakoue, who's a talented pass rusher who's still available out there on the open market.
Are the Jets cursed?
Is water wet? Is the sky blue? Those age-old questions. Yes, I believe. There's certain. I know there's books been written about this, whether snake-bitten things or misfortune or luck, if any of that's the real deal. And I am 100% a believer in the gods and fate and all these things twisting and turning throughout time. The New York Jets absolutely are. Joe Namath, He sold his soul to the devil to give us the Super Bowl and Super Bowl III against the Baltimore Colts, and we'll never forget that one. But I think they say every you got to pay for the crime and do what you got to do. I think 55 years of service time is more than enough to the overlords to pay back
Yeah.
that pittance, and then we could come back around the other way and be free of those shackles. Yes,
Someday.
someday,
Come on.
someday, hopefully soon, for the love of everything that's holy. Yes.
Yeah. We'll go through the other. We'll definitely come back to the Jets.
Sure.
But we wanted to run through the other two
Yeah.
quotes, air quote, local end quote teams.
Yeah.
The Bills. I mean, Bills are 2-0. They were looking really good this year. Do they are they are they about to kick off another Super Bowl run here or what? What are they doing?
You got to credit the coaching, because I'm going to be honest. I mean, heading into this season, it was change for the Buffalo Bills, and this inevitably had to happen when you have a really good quarterback. This is a quarterback-driven league. You need him. Josh Allen's really good. Eventually, you had to pay him. And when there's a difference between paying him and then coming on the cap. This year, Josh Allen was getting paid like the really good quarterback he is, which affects the cap and forces tough business decisions on other parts of the roster. Micah Hyde, gone. Jordan Poyer, gone. Tre'Davious White, gone. You go through all of these. Stephon Diggs, obviously, he ultimately leaves via trade cuts, all these different guys that left this offseason, and it's an era change. And when this happens and you still have Josh Allen, you're always going to be able to compete when you have a quarterback that can play. But the gamble that the Buffalo Bills are making is, okay, we're going to replace all of these proven leaders and proven production guys with young guys that are far cheaper. And if the far cheaper guys surprise and they're good, you're like, okay, great. We just saved whatever it is. And you can start doing the math per position. Like, oh, wow, we just got $7 million worth of value here. This running back, as a random example, is just as good as the one we were paying before. Great. We saved money there. Now we can make that up here. And then you continue to play the game all the way there. So as long as the Bills have Josh Allen, they're always going to be in there. But I'm going to be honest, right before, the season, I thought the loss of Matt Milano to a torn bicep, I thought that was a crippling blow for the Buffalo Bills, and one, quite frankly, I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to overcome. But the early returns here have been spectacular. A brutal beat down the Miami Dolphins. That was even before the Tua Tagovailoa injury, and then in Week 1, some craziness against the Arizona Cardinals. But it goes back to the original point of parity. My ultimate observation is that it's hard to win in this league, so you got to stack them up. Don't apologize for how you got them, and then at the end of the season, count them up. All right, everyone goes trick or treating. They come back. All right, how many pieces of candy do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, cool. We have enough for the playoffs. Great. Let's get a ticket to the dance and see if we can get in. If you have a quarterback, you always have a chance.
Well, a team that is probably not going to be counting a whole lot of Halloween candy this year is the New York Giants. Good God. They lost to Washington, the Commandos, by 7 field goals. And get out of town with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
the question
I
is,
say, before you even give your question, the fact that the Giants made this kind of history where they scored 3 touchdowns, they gave up no touchdowns, and they lost in regulation, being the first team in NFL history to ever accomplish that.
That's right.
That is, that's historic. Yeah.
The Giants breaking records. That's
right. Not the kind of records I thought even existed, but Giants, way to find it. Yeah. To your question, of course.
Yes. So Dayball and Shane, are they out the door before the end of the season, or are they given the benefit of the doubt through the end of the season and just kind of see how things play out?
It's a regime question, in terms of ownership. For instance, the Jets, because I can always work the Jets into any conversation for no apparent reason that you didn't ask for. The Jets' current ownership of Woody Johnson, despite how bad it's been, and boy, has it been bad over the years, they've never fired a coach midseason. They've always let them play it out and then figure things out once we get to the offseason. The Giants, of course, they have. Taken guys out when it has not been good and just rolled with interims and things of that nature before. So I think the axe is grinding. How could John Mara, who on one end, he sees Saquon Barkley score 3 touchdowns in a different country for a division rival, and then he turns around and his own team are finding creative, unique new ways to lose. How could their heads not be on the chopping block? And I think the problem for the Giants, and it is what it is, things just happen, that they overachieved early the first year, coach of the year, and going into Minnesota, winning a playoff game. And all of a sudden, oh, we thought we were here. We're here, the Giants say. And then all of a sudden, you have this harsh slapback to reality this past season. You're like, oh boy. What just happened here? Now, what are we heading into this very pivotal season? Here we are in 2024. The Giants have no one to blame but themselves. We could say, well, it's not their quarterback. It's not their quarterback. Well, they certainly paid him like it was their quarterback. That was a 4-year deal for $160 million. And I was saying it on the radio here locally in town that the right decision for the Giants is we didn't know what Daniel Jones was. We didn't know if he was terrible. We didn't know if he was great. So sign Saquon, who is just good people. And I think it's an overlooked facet in sports building. You have to have good guys, just guys that are just rock solid. Of course, Saquon obviously is wildly talented on the football field, but his leadership, his charitable work, all of it. Just like if you had a daughter, you'd want her to eventually marry a guy like Saquon Barkley. Like having those guys in the room were important. So for the Giants to signed Daniel Jones to the long-term deal, who they didn't know what really he was, and to tag Saquon, play the game, and then Saquon escapes, it just made more sense to sign Saquon to the long-term deal for running backs, which would have been probably a 3 or 4 year deal, and then Daniel Jones played the tag. And if they tagged him last year and they saw what happened this past season, oh boy, well, eject button. And then the Giants could have been more aggressive. We saw in Hard Knocks that the Giants wanted to trade up for a talented quarterback, but they didn't do it because they had Daniel Jones also hanging around the roster, so they weren't sure what to do. If they didn't have Daniel Jones, which they wouldn't have if they tagged him, they could have been more aggressive and pushed the chips in the middle of the table, because what do they have to lose? There's no Daniel Jones hanging around. They have nothing, so they have nothing to lose, so they could have been aggressive from that standpoint. So Giant fans who are listening to this are not going to like this, but they can play rock, paper, scissors with the Carolina Panthers to figure out who's having the number 1 overall pick in 2025. And let me apologize, because I know that this podcast has wide reach. Of course it does.
Yes.
It's a Laker foundation, pillars of Laker history here. I want to apologize to the German people, because I know you guys have a strong German listenership. And I apologize. In the beginning of November, the German people will be subject to the Carolina Panthers versus the New York Giants.
That's right.
As the only game in Germany, playing as the only standalone game at the time at 9:30 in the morning here Eastern time. I would like to apologize 2 months in advance to the German people, and that still isn't enough. Good Lord have mercy. I'm sorry that people are paying for tickets to that. They should be paying you to go to that game. Good Lord.
It's a relegation 6-pointer, as they say in the European game.
But at the same time, right? The Giants saw this first year with Daboll that Daniel Jones had a great year. They took him to the playoffs. They won a first round game. Great. What do we have here? Who knows? Maybe maybe Daboll has something here. Maybe Daboll can work his magic on this guy, right? And then you can't really have a running back, right? If your quarterback stinks and you have no line, the Giants proved that very well when Saquon Barkley couldn't run the ball anywhere because he couldn't get through any holes because the defense was running through all the holes. So, and then you have John Mara, who's trying to basically say, I need you to resign this guy, right? And I need you to resign Barkley. And you're like, well, I can't do both. Like, how much money do you expect me to spend? And then how much money are we going to have elsewhere? So I feel like they were handcuffed by John Mara to a certain extent at the same time.
Yeah, it makes sense. The thing that I would say in the evaluation of Daniel Jones, again, we go to that playoff year, that year of, as we found out, appeared apparently to be a facade, is when you look at Daniel Jones' numbers, it appears to be more outlier-ish. It seemed it in the moment, as again, because my radio partner, Jim the Man-Child Lurch, is a diehard Giants fan, and we were talking about this, and I'm like, man, Lurch, I know you're excited about your Giants, this is great, but let's take a step back here. He had 15 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. And you really start, like that 3-to-1 touchdown reception ratio, sign me up. But you really start evaluating the numbers, and you saw that it was Brian Daboll seemingly putting lipstick on a pig. Like, he made Daniel Jones look as great as he's ever looked, but every other year, Daniel Jones has had the injury issues. He's had the fumbling issues. He's had the interception issues. And you're just like, man, so he's able to channel it for 1 year, which again, to me, you tag him, you tag Daniel Jones, you sign Saquon, even to the long-term deal. Because long-term deal for running backs is, at the time, 12 to 14 million per year. Long-term money for the quarterback, as we found, and now the numbers have gone astronomical. Dak Prescott's making 60 million a year now, but even still, that Daniel Jones money was in the 40 million per year range. Your gamble would have been better served still on Saquon with the long-term deal because it wouldn't have been the same money as DJ. And again, if Daniel Jones was awesome again, then I would have given a great apology on the radio. Okay, I'm sorry. Daniel Jones is way better than we thought. Here it is. It wasn't just a one-year thing. Now we've got a trend here. We've got some history to back it up. And because of that, now they're kind of stuck in a hole here. So again, there's talented pieces on this Giants team. Obviously, you get Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. They make a big splash, get the scuba gear on, dive into the deep end of the pool for Brian Burns. Like, oh, this is sexy. Okay, the good old Giants days. Lawrence Taylor. Look at this team that's being built here. But it's unfortunate that there's individual talent. And Malik Neighbors is a wildly talented wide receiver. You have all these individual pockets of talent, but just not enough in the areas that are going to matter, where some of that's getting mitigated, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, you look at that playoff year, and they went 9-7-1, but I remember they pulled out a ton of close games by one score,
Right.
point, like mere 2-3 points. They were pulling these games out. So, half of those games go the other way. And now they're what, 7-9-1, or they're even worse.
Not even.
So
right.
it was they won so many tight games, and then the law of averages swung the other way the following year. But like for me, and I wrote about this, and I'm going to say this for the rest of my life, is that Barkley never should have been a Giant to begin with, and that moment. So when Gettleman had the number 2 pick and he had all those quarterbacks on the board. He had Josh Allen on the board. He had Lamar Jackson on the board, Sam Darnold on the board.
Yeah. Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen. And
all right, well, let's not talk about Josh Rosen. We don't
the Rosen one? You're not a Rosen one guy? All right. All right.
So he picks Barkley, and I know you change things, if you do the hypothetical game, of course, not everything's going to be the same after that. But when the Giants had the number 2 pick in the second round, Nick Chubb was still on the board at that point, which was another solid running back. Mm-hmm. So conceivably, the Giants could have come away with Josh Allen and Nick Chubb. Now you're looking at you've
Super Bowl, baby.
You've just transformed the franchise. But instead, he drafts Barkley, knowing that the Giants had a ton of holes elsewhere on the roster, and now you're parking a Maserati outside a trailer park. And then the following year, and then Jones never would have been drafted. If Gettleman had gone with a quarterback in 2018, Daniel Jones does not get drafted by the Giants, and now you're in a completely different situation right now. But because of that just one pick of taking Barkley, you really flush the following 5-6 years down the toilet, and who knows how much further this will go on.
I think the real issue isn't selecting Saquon Barkley, which we could say. It was the fact that Dave Gettleman grabbed his phone. Here's a prop on the show.
Wouldn't take any offers.
This production value. And he went, let me turn this off. Hey, Dave, the phone's ringing. Huh? What? No. We got the pick. It's figured out. He refused to answer the phone. And I imagine people were lighting him up because the Jets, if we remember, again, I can work the Jets back and everything.
Yeah.
The Jets moved up from 6 to 3 a month before the draft. They couldn't get up to number 2 because we already established David Gettleman wasn't answering phone calls, or so we thought. So the Jets move up as high, quote unquote, as they thought they could get, which was 3. Cleveland had number 1. Cleveland shocks the draft, goes Baker Mayfield because everyone thought it was going to be Sam Darnold. So all of a sudden, the Giants were in the pole position. The Bills were trying to leapfrog the Jets. The Bills we thought one of the Joshes. We weren't sure whether it was Rosen or Allen, but they wanted him or maybe even Sam Darnold. And Dave Gettleman said, kick rocks, pal. I'm good. We're taking Saquon. I'm in love with this guy. But he could have traded back, still gotten Saquon, and gotten the Halls. And then we're talking about Giant Super Bowl, and let's rev the engines, baby, for Big Blue fans. Like, that to me is the mistake. That as a GM, you can't have the absolutes of absolutely not. You have to. Someone is desperate enough at all times to
Mhm.
give you some sort of an offer that you can't refuse. And now we're talking about something else. And with quarterbacks and that class, which was supposed to be so rich and so ever flowing, someone would have given the Giants a crazy ass offer, and apparently they didn't want a quarterback. That's where the mistake, to me, at its bare bones foundation, was made. And unfortunately, we know how the rest of history has come here over the last couple of years.
And
Yes.
Gettleman not
Yeah, I
only
mean-
ruined the Giants, but he ruined the Carolina Panthers before that. Just keep that in mind.
I know. There's a
He-
track
I
record
mean,
there.
Think about it. There was reports that that Elway was willing to pay Herschel Walker type deal,
Mhm.
picks for that pick, and he was just like, yeah, no, I'm good. Don't worry,
Yeah.
we got it. We're good. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
Thanks.
Unbelievable.
Like he single-handedly
Ah,
has pushed that team down to the bottom of the league and
Yeah.
made Shane and Dable like have to try to dig it out. They're hamstrung for the most part because they were stuck with they had Daniel Jones and Saquon, and now like, what do we do? And so all this stuff and back and forth. And then you have a winning season. It's you got stuck with what you had got stuck with, and now you got to try to figure it out. It's like making a nice cake with a bunch of carrots and apples.
And they had 2 first-round picks that year. It was 6 and 17. And Dave
Right.
Gettleman Jedi mind tricked himself and said, Senior Bowl, I'm in love with Daniel Jones. And then the rest of the room's like, I think he's going to be there at 17. No, he won't. I have to take him at 6. And Josh Allen, the pass rusher that goes to Jacksonville. Oh, excuse me, Joshua Hines Allen, because he's changed his name
yeah.
again. So like he was available. And every Giant fan on the side of this blue earth told me, we need a pass rusher, baby. Joshua Hines Allen is the guy we got to get, and of course we know what happened. So again, just all of history that changes with that and the ripple effects.
So as a sports talk show host, you are
Yes,
in
sir.
Syracuse, right? What's the vibe you're getting now from the college side of sports on the SU football team?
Yeah, it's dramatically different. Again,
Mhm.
the glory days or last of them was the tail end of Paul Pasqualoni. We had the late 90s and early 2000s where you had guys like Donovan McNabb, and I'm so old now that Marvin Harrison Sr., I'm doing callbacks and his son's now in the NFL, so there's a full circle moment. Dwight Freeney, who's now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So again, when you're referencing, the glory days, Hall of Fame, and all these other things. So these players have had a full NFL career, retired, and we're on a rocking chair, and then went into the Hall of Fame before we're having these Syracuse moments again. The energy is palpable in town, and that's great to see. This is for a long time been a Syracuse basketball town with all the success, obviously, that Jim Boeheim has had. But as a football guy at my heart, and the legacy of the Syracuse football program with, I don't have to tell you guys, but the Floyd Littles, Ernie Davises, Larry Zonkas, the wide receivers, Hall of Famers of Marvin Harrison, Art Monk. Like you go through all the guys that Syracuse has had in their rich history of players on all sides of the ball. Tim Green, shout out to Tim Green. Like there's just been so many wonderful players over the years that they've had, and we've just had this doldrum of suckage. We had Doug Marone, who was mediocre with his 25 and 25 through his 4 years, and Scott Schaefer's, and I tried to skip over Greg Robinson, but yes, from what I've been told, that still happened. So you know what I mean? Like there was all this action happening of Garbaggio, and we're like, oh boy, are we ever going to flip the switch? And I'm going to be honest, when they hired Fran Brown, who's the current head coach of the Syracuse football team, I had my doubts. This guy's never been a head coach before. He was only a co-defensive coordinator once. He's never run a team. And when he was asked at his introductory press conference, why haven't you? He said, because I didn't want to. And I want everyone to know in every future interview, if anyone ever has a problem with my resume, the only reason I don't have is because I didn't want it, which is must be the greatest answer of all time that Fran Brown gave, because I didn't want it. Okay, I'd have no follow up for that. I guess that works. So I was lacking in the belief, to be honest. We had just had Dino Babers, belief without evidence. Close your eyes and visualize this and visualize that. For Fran Brown, it was hard for me to visualize it, but the proof is in the results. He got the starting quarterback from the Ohio State last year with 1 year of eligibility left, and Kyle McCord is choosing to spend that, or chose rather, he's already here, but he chose to spend that at Syracuse. That to me is baffling. Like, wow, okay, now, okay, we could say Ferry does this, Ferry does that, but results, a recruit, booyah, the quarterback position. Now, here's what I'm talking about. He was able to lure Kyle McCord in this new transfer portal era to come here and spend his final year of eligibility, a guy that has NFL aspirations, and he's like, yes, Syracuse can get me there, and that sends belief in waves for very many future recruiting cycles. So Fran Brown had the talk and hubbub of being one of the greatest recruiters in the country, and he was able to put his money where his mouth was and bring in Kyle McCord. So the vibe is electric in Syracuse, quite frankly. The energy is palpable. This team obviously is undefeated. They're coming off a bye week. They're playing ACC rival Stanford on some Friday night football. Come on, how does that not rev your engine? At Cal, ACC rival later in the season. Oh, baby. It just revs my traditional college football engine, obviously. So, Syracuse has a lot in front of them. They have one of the easiest schedules in the country. If Syracuse handles its business, we could talk about all the hubbub of the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams this year. Kyle McCord, before the bye week, was leading all of college football in touchdown passes. So there's energy, there's excitement, and it's long overdue for Syracuse football fans.
And what are people saying about him right now? Like, what's the talk about him,
Who, Fran?
in Syracuse, outside of Syracuse, about McCord?
Oh, McCord. Well, obviously, and you, as I could see that Giants, is that Giants hat on your head? Is that what that is? Or is that
No,
Mets?
it's a Mets hat.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I was going to throw you in the Giants, so those poor bastards. But on Hard Knocks, it was a Kyle McCord caught a stray bullet. For those who didn't see the Giants, Hard Knocks is Marvin Harrison Jr. was in the room with the Giants. They were asking him about this throw that Kyle McCord seemed to peg a guy who was selling hot dogs in the stands, and they kind of joked like, nice throw. I don't think they used his name, but I think we can all kind of put the piece together of who threw that throw, and they were covering it here in Syracuse of the shot that Kyle McCord was taking. So to be honest, Kyle McCord was laughed at when he picked Syracuse. He had 1 year of eligibility, went Ohio State to Syracuse, what a loser. Like, oh man, what an idiot. Look at this guy. And Ohio State clearly made the right decision of tossing him from campus because he's no good. So I think Kyle McCord came here with this massive chip on his shoulder. So the outside perception was laughing. They said they couldn't believe that he chose Syracuse. And Fran Brown and some of the fans and everything just kind of had this quiet belief about it when you combine the schedule, which is cream puff central for Syracuse in a lot of respects. They avoided what we thought were the ACC Titans of Florida State and Clemson, who, well, that's a separate podcast conversation, perhaps. So, when you look at the schedule and everything that it contains outside of the Miami game in the final regular season, which should be a doozy, and we'll see what that sets up as, at the tail end of the season. This schedule lined up perfectly. Kyle McCord coming here, he had this chip on his shoulder. The fans believed. So, quite frankly, the conversation around Kyle McCord was laughter, jokes, but I think Kyle McCord has turned a lot of believers with his performance early on. Of course, again, you have to consider the level of the opponent here in the first 2 weeks of the season. They did get a top 25 win against Georgia Tech before the bye week a couple weeks ago. But yeah, there is a stronger belief now. But if we're being candid, you got me on the mountaintop here, Paul. What's really happening? Well, there wasn't much belief in the Kyle McCord thing until they actually saw the results.
And you said Miami at the end of the season. I bet anything, any amount of money, they're going to be number one going into that game. And Syracuse will also be ranked in the top 25 somehow. That's going to be an epic game at the end of the season.
And there's a chance, if depending on how the Cards play in the ACC, we might get a discount double check. We might get that game in the regular season, which is scheduled, and then the following week is at the ACC championship game where they run it back.
Yep.
So, it could be terrific. Again, that's the only negative. And again, maybe a much deeper, longer conversation about the expansion of the college football playoff and how the regular season now loses some of its value where it was playoff football in regular season. Because if you lost, it dramatically hurt your chance of making a top 4. Now that's a top 12. Okay, we could lose this one or lose that one. And maybe we'll see this team once, twice, 3 times. Like, there's all kinds of changes from that perspective. But I think you're right. I think you're onto something. Miami looks incredibly talented. We've already
Really
talked
good.
about, and Syracuse just on the border of top 25 themselves heading into this. So if they continue to build on that steam, they 100%, that could all line up, and it could be one of the biggest Syracuse football games that we've seen in a long time.
So let's return to the Jets. Let's ask you this. So, how
Yeah.
did you become a Jets fan, and what is it like to be a journalist covering your favorite team?
Yeah, that's a trip. So, a lot of people I feel like just have and there's nothing wrong with this, but very simple stories. My father was a season ticket holder for 45 years, and then this curse was passed down from one generation to another. My football family is incredibly eclectic. My father is a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. My mother is a Patriots fan. My brother's a Ravens fan. My other brother is a Saints fan. They're all over the place. So my father tried his damnedest to raise me America's team and the Cowboys. And, we'd be watching games, and inevitably the Cowboys would blow it somewhere in there. And he'd be in the fetal position on the floor saying, "Not again, damn it." Like, "Lord, take me." And I'm like, and I was watching it with him, and I was feeling nothing, zip and pip. I felt like I felt some level of bad for my father that he was on the ground wallowing, but I was like, me personally, I felt nothing. And I said, man, to be a fan, you have to have investment, the highs, the lows, all of it. Like, you got to feel the rush. You got to feel that, sweet excitement and sweet pain of losing. And so I didn't really vibe with the Cowboys, but I was an available free agent to be picked up by a team. I didn't know what the team was or how it would be put together. And and of all people, my grandfather, who again is a Giants fan, so again the eclectic nature continues. He used to call me as a young kid Dejet. And he said I was running around all over the place. And then he every once in a while he'd do the Jet chant. And I'm like, "Hey, Grandpa, what is that?" He's like, "Let me show you." Flips on the tube and a Jet game was on, and I was in love with the team ever since. So I have no one to blame, of course, except my grandfather for pushing me down this well, and no other part of my family outside of my fiance and child, who I'm now forcing the Jets all over. But besides them, I had no other Jet affiliation or reason to be associated with the New York Jets. So quite a journey to get here, but I've always loved football. My dad played college football, so it's all that football kind of together was just my grandpa played college football. Like, all of the football was just kind of there for me to just take. And when unfortunately, we talked about my Hall of Fame high school football career, the statue again, which is still in production. When the NFL teams and the college football teams did not say, "Hey, we're looking for a 5'3" running back on a slanted hill," when those calls didn't come, I said, if I can't play football, I want to talk about football. And that's what launched me into the sports media career, and which goes full circle to answering it about getting to cover a team that I love. I actually got to go to another Laker alum, Steve Levy. And while I was in school, Steve Levy came back a few times to share his gospel and his wisdom and insights. And I talked to him after, one of the seminars, and I said, "Steve, can I talk to you real quick?" He's like, "Sure, Sonny. Yeah, I can talk to you." I'm like, "Hey, so you're like a Jets guy, like I'm a Jets guy, but here's my problem, Steve. Like, I want to let the world know, in the media world, they say you're not supposed to have any fandom. You're supposed to keep that in your closet. You just gotta like kind of call it how you see it. Got to be unbiased. You can't say anything." But I said it's kind of hard because I love the Jets, and I don't want to hide that. That's kind of the passion and everything I'm all about. And Steve just kind of put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You got to ditch the Jets thing. Just do your job and enjoy it in the comfort of your own home," basically. And I just took his advice. He said, and I was like, "Thanks, Steve. Thanks for taking the time." And I just kind of went for a walk down by the Oswego River, and I was just thinking about what he said. And I just said, "You know what? Screw Steve Levy. I'm just, you know what? I'm just going to, yeah, there you go. Screw Steve Levy. Screw the former voice of Monday Night Football." I said, I'm going to kind of do my own thing here, and I'm just going to embrace the Jets, and people are either going to love it or hate it, and it just is what it is. They're going to realize this, which I eventually got the radio nickname Boy Green from my radio partner, Jim Lurch. And I just said, I'm just going to embrace this Jet thing, and if people love it, great. If they hate it, great. But I'm not going to be hiding anything underneath the surface, like where they say, "Paul, you're a Jets guy." Yeah, I dabble. No, yes, I am a Jets guy, and I wear it on my sleeve, and that's really a lot of what it is. So, to be honest, when we get all the way full circle, this is a long answer to your question, but in terms of the media coverage of it, some people say you shouldn't be a fan of a team because you're left biased. Like you have all that stuff on your mind. I looked at it always as another way. No one is more in depth and close to a team than a fan. They should know the positives and negatives. They're right there seeing it. Ah, geez, look at this run defense. What's happening here? Or the great things that are happening on the team. The insights, I can't believe we haven't carved out time for the Irv Charles Special Teams MVP Jet Player of the Week on the podcast. But like insights that level, I would assume a normal Jets media member, who the hell would be paying attention to that? So I just feel like it's given me depth. It's giving me understanding. It's given me like vested interest in a lot of ways where I'm able to write about the team, radio about the team, video shows about the team. I was able to do a television thing earlier with SNY and the New York Post earlier. They wanted me to come on to talk about the Jets because this Boy Green nickname thing and some of the juice that it's had out in the community. And I pinched myself. I'm like, holy friggin' crap. Look at this Jets thing. Yeah, suck it, Steve Levy. No, I didn't say that. It ended up all working out. So it's been pretty cool.
So you mentioned earlier, obviously, that you had a Hall of Fame high school career, and you're still waiting for that statue, and you're still waiting for all those
the phone is on vibrate.
To come
I
in.
want that to be clear that I would accept the statue if there was a late pivot in the decision making, despite it being so long. I would accept it. Yes, graciously.
Still waiting for all those scholarships because you still have 4 years of eligibility left, right?
That's right.
But what led you, besides to, you mentioned, if I can't play the sport, maybe I'll talk about it. So is that what really pushed you into broadcasting? Like what really pushed you into broadcasting, and what brought you to attend Oswego?
Yeah. So it's fun. I don't think I've ever admitted this anywhere before, which is going to be kind of funny. Funny, depending on your perspective. So coming out of high school, I was a guy that felt like I was the smartest chip in the bag of potato chips. I'm like, I can just kind of absorb information. I've got photographic memory and things can just happen in my old brain. Like if a test came up, I'm like, let me just replay that video in my head from class. Oh yeah, that's what they said for answer A, B, C, D. And then I thought I could cruise control on my big brain and how smart I was. And I'm like, and so in the back of I lived in Oswego. I moved here in 2008. So in the back of my head, I'm like, I've always got SUNY Oswego no matter what. And out of high school, I'm like, oh, well, you know what? Let me throw an application over to Oswego because obviously I'm getting in there. And Oswego rejected me. And it was like, and I went like, whoa. And my dad, and it was kind of this like coming of age moment, like, hey, Sonny, you can't just go on cruise control for all this stuff and think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it just kind of like, that was a turning moment in my life that I thought I had everything figured out. I got rejected by Oswego. I was humbled and I said, man, what am I going to do now? And I went to community college. So I went to Cayuga Community College. They have a campus both in Fulton and Auburn. And there I initially started in Fulton and I was doing your gen eds, your normal stuff you have to do. And then something piqued me. I had seen on either a Cayuga Community College website or someone brought it up, on the Auburn campus, they got a TV station. They got a radio station. I went, oh, really? Well, what's it, a 40-minute drive or whatnot? Like, okay, let me go to the Auburn campus, see what it's all about. And because it's a community college, I got so much hands-on experience at the radio station, TV station. I said, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is great. I'm getting unbelievable experience. I got to be behind the camera. I got to be on the camera. I got all this stuff, and it would just spark something. Like, again, because I wanted to play, of course, but those calls still waiting. Let me check. Yep, still nothing. Still nothing on that front. Yeah, I know. I was really hoping that 8:58 halfway through September would finally be the time. That's so bizarre, and that hasn't hit yet. Maybe my agent has his phone on Do Not Disturb. But once like that reality wasn't available, again, it was sort of that I love sports. I'm passionate about sports. And how can I express that? What can it be? And it was just kind of a meeting of the minds. It It was a marriage of convenience that I was happened to be at Cayuga Community College. I couldn't play the sports that I wanted to, but I wanted to participate in some way. And then it was just kind of in my face that they had this hands-on experience. And once they got there, like I said, a light switch flipped. And I ended up with this 3.9 GPA in college. Again, the only class I ended up bumming out on, isn't this funny? This is way too deep. Art. I just take art. Everything else, aced, A plus, A plus, A plus. Art, I got a C because I didn't have the philosophical thing the teacher was looking for. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me here? I was trying to get a 4.0 GPA for God's sake.
Man.
But then Oswego still accepted me. Thank God. When I applied when I went up to bat the second time, a lot more confident. Loved the things I did with hands-on experience and all these different things. So I apply and get through to Oswego, and obviously the alum base speaks for itself, obviously, with, the Al Rokers and Linda Cones and Steve Levy's and all these wonderful people, and obviously all you guys were on the list. And, and I wanted it bad. At first, again, the way I initially described it, I'm like, fallback. It's always going to be, I live in the town. It's right there. That's going to be easy. And then when that failed, and I'm pretty sure I've never told that story anywhere publicly. And once I got that harsh rejection, it was just, whoa, that hit me in the face. And just my work ethic went from one level to a completely other level. I just fully went after it, and it just changed everything. The way I lived my life, off the field, so to speak, the way I lived it in the classroom and everything, and it just fired me up. And I've still had that flame today, however many years later of doing it now. And I just wanted to be at Oswego bad. I just wanted to get everything. So I had a shorter experience. I ended up being at Oswego for 2.5 years after my community college career ran out. But it was awesome. And I got to do radio. I got to do TV. I got to do a little bit of everything, and just the Oswegonian. And then I got to have a little bit of a taste of everything. And that's where I met Jim Lurch. He was an adjunct professor at SUNY Oswego. I took a bunch of his classes. I'm like, I heard there's some man-child show. What is that about? And again, speaking of rejection, he would check me a bunch of times after class. I'm like, hey, do you need anybody? He's like, no, I'm good, whoever you are. No, thank you. And I went there, just did whatever they wanted. I just wanted to be around. I just wanted to be in the room. I wanted to help them with anything and stat stuff or anything they would have wanted. And after 6 months of that internship, it was about to be over because normally internships work semester to semester basis. The semester ended, and Jim Lurch's show got the call from ESPN. They wanted to buy their show and bring it to the mothership. And because I had impressed in that 4 or 5 months with Lurch, he said, Paul, we want to bring you with me. Still free, but you'll get the door at ESPN. I said, sign me up, baby. Okay. All right, I'm in. And then again, right place, right time. I'm in a side production studio, and long story short, I'm in this side production studio after the radio station. I'm trying to make it worth it. I'm like, man, maybe if I cut up some demo reel stuff, maybe it'll be worth it. And we have this ESPN boss. He burst into the room, and I'm like, oh no, oh boy. And he said, do you work here? And he was really aggressive, and I'm like, no, I don't. And I'm like packing up my stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm out. And then he said, do you want to? I'm like, yes. And booyah, 35-hour-a-week job producing every show that ESPN Radio had at the time. Brent Axe on the block, Dan Duva in the booth before he became the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights, Orange Nation, Stephen finally. I just got to be the producer of being at the right place at the wrong time. A big dumb idiot who has a clover leaf shoved somewhere on his body was able to unlock that, and that help kind of spark things at the radio station. So I just feel like I'm incredibly lucky. I've been at the right place at the right time and the right hard work, and it's all kind of mounted to this.
That's a pretty cool story.
That is.
Okay. Hey, all right. I like it. I'm glad it resonates.
And we broke news.
That's
Oswego
true.
rejected you.
That's got to be, if that's not the headline, I don't know what is. I mean, for goodness sake.
That's
like
on the
I said, I'm pretty
now.
sure. Yeah, that's it. Right. I'm looking forward to the SUNY Oswego response from that. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've never told that story anywhere before, and it's true. And that, again, it was just this life-changing event for me of getting rejected. And sometimes you need to get punched in the face and just to kind of like smell the roses, go, whoa, okay. I was just on cruise control doing whatever I thought was right, or these things or that things, both personally, professionally. And then that just humbled me immediately. I'm like, whoa, okay. We gotta roll up the sleeves here. We gotta do something. Like my life is hanging in the balance with college and everything is going to decide what I'm going to be doing for the next however many years. So like, let's do it. And yeah, it was just an absolute life changing moment.
So the question we like to ask all of the Oswego alum that we talk to on the show is about food because, we love food.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
So when we lived on campus, the chicken patty sandwich was the go-to sandwich on campus. Is that something that you like to indulge in as well when you were living on Oswego's campus?
I feel like if I do not answer that question with the answer that was just gifted to me, I will have to be excommunicated from the city of Oswego moving forward. Of course, yes, the chicken sandwich was there. Also, this is super like in the weeds. I was a big French fry guy. I
Okay.
went to
Love French fries. Yes.
any place that is on campus that sold French fries. I just got it. So I probably had French fries 3 or 4 times a day. And I'm still alive, thank God, for now. And I am a potato fiend, and I absolutely love them. So I'd have chicken sandwich and some potatoes. Potato of any kind. The only potato that I discriminate against is sweet potato. Absolutely disgusting. It looks like an alien creature. It doesn't even look like any other kind of potato. Where did this come from? I don't know, but I wanted eliminated from the universe. But every other potato is fine by me. Yes.
It's funny. I thought you were going to say when you were starting that what you were saying. I thought you were going to be like, I'm actually from Oswego and I never lived on campus, so I never had the chicken patty sandwich.
Yeah, luckily, and again, I guess this is a nerdy thing to admit. I did live in Oswego at the time because, again, I had moved down there in 2008. But I just spent all day at the campus, so I was always in the library doing sports stuff. Of in between classes, I was always at those computers, and I was just like taking my own notes, doing my own demo reels, doing all kinds of stuff. So I was always in there, like probably to an uncomfortable level, where librarians are like, "Okay, we're closing, pal," or "This is happening, get out," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm so sorry." And so they're moving and grooving. So yeah, I was always there. So I always need to be fed, to make sure kind of like the hamster wheel was still going. So I had to grab food and drink every once in a while to keep the mojo going.
Did you have a spot off campus that you like going to?
Ooh, baby. Oh boy. Yeah, there well, I know unfortunately it's not there anymore, I don't think. I don't the shed, that's no longer there,
The
right? It's
shed
like a
is no
liquor
longer
store.
there,
Yeah,
unfortunately not.
that's a damn shame. Of course, we have all the classics where Rudy's is awesome. There's a diner downtown that I still go to even to this day now once a week. Which is Maria's. Shout out to Maria's.
That is excellent. That's an excellent diner.
I am a breakfast burger guy. I get the same meal every time. So for anyone that goes and says, let me try something different, why? We only have a limited amount of time on this earth. I know what I want, so I'm going to get it every time, and I will die a happy man. I get a burger. I get an egg over easy, some bacon on it, and some fried potatoes extra crispy. And every day, every time, they just come up. Now, they don't even they don't bring me a menu. They don't ask what I want. They just bring the drink. And I say, we just put your order in. I'm like, God bless. Thank you very much. And then they just go to town. It's terrific. And then the people I don't understand, let me try your kerfluffle. And then it comes out and they taste it like, oh, this is disgusting. I'm like, wouldn't know. I like this meal. And I've always liked it. Always will. So for people, I just use this as a soapbox opportunity. Please, people, stop trying new foods. That is absolutely a terrible decision.
So how come they haven't renamed it the Boy Green Special?
Great
this
question.
needs to happen, doesn't it?
This is again with my legend being as vast as it is and only growing, being on this podcast. Hopefully, you want to know something that's funny. So we all know the Oswego Sub Shop here in town,
Of course.
and
Of course.
they've had a lot of alum that have been immortalized. And when I was working at ESPN as an intern, something that kind of caught me off guard because I knew all these wonderful alum. I'm like, why does Linda Cohn not have a sub? Like, that seems kind of weird. She's had like a lot of great success. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try to see if I could get Linda Cohn a sub. So I started tweeting out, get Cohn a sub. And I was trying to get it going and try to see if I could catch some traction. And it caught traction. I'm like, oh my God, people get Cohn a sub, get Cohn a sub. I'm like, oh my God, is this kind of thing? And then Linda Cohn reached out to me and she said, you're damn right, I deserve a sub. And I said, great. And we got to get to the owner and do a whole thing through the school and stuff, which was awesome. And that was a bunch of years, somewhere, the last 12, 13 years, somewhere in there is when it was able to happen. And it was awesome. We got her the sub, and that was was terrific, and we got it in. So you know what? You're damn right. It's about full circle. We got Kona sub. Why the hell don't we have some sort of a Boy Green special for the love of everything that's holy? All my years of dedication and finances and investment into the community. Yeah. I'm getting so emotional, broken up talking about it. Yeah, we need to get it in. Yes.
All right. What we're gonna have to take this off the air and talk about how we can make this happen.
That's right.
So it
That's
sounds like
right.
Yes.
it sounds like tweeting about it will be the best.
Yeah,
way.
it seems
think
wildly
so.
effective. Come on, social media, baby. Yes.
Well, Paul, this has been a total blast. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. So we really appreciate that, and we wish you all the best. So
Well, thanks for having me. It's great. So many legends have been on this show. So when I got the call, it was almost like I've been in the minors training, grinding for years, waiting for that call to make an appearance on the podcast. And once I got it, again, I maybe I could have gotten it earlier in my career, but too arrogant. I wasn't ready for the opportunity. I wasn't ready for the moment to step up and be available. So it came at the right time in my life, the right maturity, the right world experiences. I feel like I was ready for this moment, and hopefully many more in the future, boys. So you guys have an award-winning podcast as far as I'm concerned, and I'm glad that I was able to finally crack the lineup here. Terrific.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
God bless. Thanks, everybody.
And that was Paul Boy Green Esden Jr., right? Co-host of the Man-Child show with Boy Green, New York Jets digital reporter with Heavy.com, host of the Boy Green Daily podcast, and of course, fellow SUNY Oswego grad. And that was that was a lot of fun and great stories, man. Great stories.
Yeah, it was really good stories. He absolutely obviously deserves a statue outside of his high school for his football playing days. Let's get on I don't know if I have any Oswego high school connections. Maybe Dom Izzo can help out with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And we need to get that sandwich named after him at Maria's Diner there.
I agree.
The burger.
The
breakfast burger.
Correct. Yes, the breakfast burger. Thank you.
Got to do it. So Maria's Family Restaurant.
That's right.
Okay.
Which is lovely, by the way. I've eaten there a few times.
But we have to figure out some kind of campaign. Maria's Family Restaurant is on the Facebook.
Oh,
So
wow.
we can
It's on
reach
the
out to
face
them.
on the Book of Faces.
It's
on the Book of Faces.
It's on the
That's
Book
right.
of Faces. So we'll say, hey, you should rename your breakfast burger after Boy Green. And they'll know exactly what we're talking about.
We'll tag it in the episode.
Oh, man. Whenever you come across a Jets fan in your life, you really just got to give them a hug and say,
Jets.
man,
Yeah.
you've been through a lot, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I usually just laugh at them. I mean, now they're laughing at me, so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think the Jets are way better than the Giants right now.
I don't know about way better. No, they're way better. You're right.
No, they're
there's
way
no
better.
question.
Come on.
Yeah, they are. No, they are.
They
way better.
could easily win 10 games this year. If the Giants win 4, we'll be lucky.
Yep. So we have a great Giant season to look forward to. Can't wait. It'll be exciting. Mets, you know what? Here's what's going to happen. They're going to wind up rolling into Atlanta, tie with Atlanta, and then they'll get the doors blown off.
And they'll get swept.
And that's it.
I mean, if they can't beat the Nationals, I don't know what's going to happen. So, and
Yeah.
Lindor's hurt, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like Lindor's going to end up on the IL.
We'll see. When we join you again in a couple of weeks, we'll have a full recap of all that Mets
Missing the playoffs.
Mets missing the playoffs. We'll get that report coming up on the next Throwing Bagels. You can reach us online, throwingbagels.com. Email throwingbagelspodcast@gmail.com. Socials are all on our website, so check them out. And that's it. Chris, Jason,
Kevin, Jason.
farewell.
Chris, Kevin.